In the streets of Mississippi, demands for transparency and truth.
And don't allow Nolan Wells' name to be forgotten.
In the death of 18-year-old Nolan Wells, who disappeared after a 4th of July boat trip with friends. His body was recovered 2 days later. Investigators say he may have drowned. But his parents question why his phone was found with a friend and why he didn't leave the island with the group he arrived with. Now the family's attorney and investigators are trying to piece together what happened, asking people who were on the island to share any videos like this one from that day. Nolan's family says he was the only black person in the group and have questioned whether race may have played a role. Tonight, his family is awaiting the results of an independent autopsy in their search for answers.
Whew, I had to take a breather before I spoke on this situation. First of all, rest in peace to Nolan Wells and prayers for the family. I hope and pray to God that they get justice for his death. Because we know for damn sure there was no accidental drowning. They're trying to say it's a drowning right now. For the record, his so-called white friends that he was with on the island, they erased their social media accounts right after it happened. And they also got lawyered up. Some of their mommies and daddies are part of the law enforcement. I found out some of them are judges and some of them are police. And one of their parents, who happened to be a judge in that raggedy town, gonna make a post on social media talking about Nolan wanted to stay behind because he was with some girl and that's why the boys left him alone. I'm not buying it. I'm just glad that it's getting more national media attention. I'm very thankful that attorney Benjamin Crump has now joined and represented this family. I heard Tyler Perry is paying for the boys' funeral. And I heard that Colin Kaepernick is the one who ordered the independent autopsy for the family. So I'm just very thankful that people are stepping up and protesting because we cannot let this be overshadowed. We cannot stop talking about this. I don't care what nobody says. And in the Black community, we have a saying, if we go somewhere together, we leave together. You know, one thing I cannot stand is when a small town like Ocean Springs, Mississippi, where everybody knows everybody, is being silent. I never understood why towns won't speak up. You got people from all over the world flocking to that town, protesting, the Hebrew Israelites, some of the local community protesting. And I honestly feel like when it comes to places like rural Mississippi and anywhere in the deep South, I think a lot of people are afraid to speak up in that town because of the fear and the racism that comes with it. You know, I come from a small town myself. I come from little old LaGrange, Texas, middle of nowhere, Central Texas, 5,000 people small, probably way smaller than that town. I think that town only got like maybe 10,000 people or more, if I'm not mistaken. But it really sucks, especially when there were tons of witnesses on that island who were there on that lake in Mississippi when the whole incident happened. Because I know for damn sure somebody knows something. Ain't nobody coming forward with nothing. Ain't nobody sharing no evidence with the police. The police have asked the townspeople to come forward with any photos or any videos of the day of the incident. And the only thing that leaked, I noticed online, was it was a very small clip. It looked like it was off of somebody's Snapchat, where somebody was heard arguing in the background about giving my cell phone. And they say it was Nolan. But then another so-called quote-unquote friend who looked like a mixed breed, he looked like he was half black and half white because of the way he talked real country like this. He says that it was him in the video yelling, "Give me my phone back," not Nolan. And he said that everyone's getting the whole story mixed up and he wanted to come out and clarify that everybody is sad. nobody wanted to see Nolan die, blah, blah, blah. Lies. Because if no one really wanted to see Nolan die, your asses should have stayed right there with him. You should have never left him alone. If you really are a true friend, so you say, why did you leave him behind? That's the other question. Because according to news reports, that black boy, the mixed breed one, that was talking about the cell phone, him being in the background, he was apparently last seen when Nolan was alive. Now, I got my antennas up on his ass too, because I don't know if he had anything to do with it either. Anybody that was around him when he was last seen alive on that island, oh, I guarantee you 1,000% they know something. Everybody is being extremely tight-lipped. And like I said, I don't know if it's because it's small town vibes. Nobody wants to get involved because they're, in fear, of the racism and the consequences that comes with talking to the police. But I feel like everybody knows everybody, and everybody is close to people in charge. Judges, police. I feel like that whole town is just corrupt, if you ask me. I don't know much about Ocean Springs, Mississippi, but from what I gathered on TikTok, because I've been doing some digging, there are a lot of people in those locals that say that it is extremely racist and it's not new. So this is probably not the first incident that's happened in that town. And furthermore, I heard there was also another separate incident where a black man was found hanging from a tree. But it wasn't Mississippi. It was somewhere else. I forgot where exactly it was at. But it was at some kind of rock festival. A white girl I saw on TikTok was talking about it. And she said nobody is talking about that random death that they found, calling it suicide. I hate when media tries to play victim and says, oh, it's drowning, oh, it's suicide. They don't even have all the facts. How the hell do you even know when the autopsy is not even done? It's BS. And I'm so glad that his family, I'm talking about Nolan now, I'm so thankful that Nolan's family got an independent autopsy, because that's going to tell everybody the truth away from that town, because we already know what time it is, and I'm just like this, it's one thing to sit up here and say that he supposedly stayed behind because he was talking to a girl. Well, if he was talking to a girl, if that's even true, that he wanted to stay behind, who's the mystery girl that nobody's talking about? That's another question you got to ask. And that's another thing that sparked a red flag. I feel like they made the girl up. Because if he was really talking to a girl, where's she at? Where's her ass at? Ain't nobody confronted her. Ain't nobody brought her to the limelight that he was supposedly talking to. I think they made that up, if you ask me. Because if he really was talking to some white girl, I guarantee you she probably would have said something by now. But if he really was talking to a white girl on that island, so they say, she's probably going to stay silent too, because mommy and daddy trying to protect her too from being involved in all this nonsense. But yeah, it's devastating. It's just so reckless, heartless, and just evil. This is why I tell people, especially black folks, if you're around a certain community, and I'm speaking on white community now, like I said, I ain't got nothing against none of them. But if you're around a certain community, like them, for example, and you're in somewhere like the deep south, it could be Texas, for crying out loud, where I come from, you better have somebody else with you. That's all I got to say. Because I don't trust us being alone with them, period. I don't. I never have, never will. I don't care how nice they are. I don't care how cool they are. I don't care how long I've known them. Because coming from where I come from in the sticks, I already know what time it is. The lynching is never going to stop. That's what people have to get into their head. You know, we're in a whole nother dimension of hatred now, to the point where technology is so advanced, people are trying to cover their tracks by deleting their social media accounts and deleting all their messages and lawyering up because they know they're in the wrong. But what they fail to realize, those idiot boys, the white boys that his so-called friends was saying that they're innocent, is that IT can pull the deleted footage that they deleted. Because I'm pretty sure Nolan had a lot of Snapchat history. Because you know them young kids, they love Snapchat. That Gen Z, they cannot stay off of Snapchat and TikTok. And it's so funny when I heard that Nolan's Snapchat was deleted as well. Now, that's my other question. How did Nolan's Snapchat images get deleted? How did his videos get deleted? Answer that question. Oh, wait. Remember the part where the white boys took Nolan's phone back to his mother hours later after he disappeared? When they got his phone, they deleted all of his shit to make sure there was no evidence, so they can clear their names and remain innocent. That's how Nolan's stuff got deleted. Because people aren't talking enough about that shit. I don't hear nobody talking about that. I just hear bits and pieces of he wanted to stay behind and he wanted to do this and he wanted to do that. But ain't nobody talking about all the stuff that's been deleted. Like, there's a thing called forensics, and a forensic examiner can actually scrub all of your devices, including laptops, including tablets too. And it doesn't matter how far back it goes. You could have deleted that shit a year ago. They can pull all of it. Yes. Even if you factory reset it, they could still pull it. It don't matter. They probably reset that boy's phone and everything after they deleted all that stuff so they wouldn't get caught up in that mess. But that's okay because God gonna get them. I have a feeling that God is gonna punish them to the max. And what goes around comes around. Remember that. Because, man, I'm just at a loss for words. You know, it's just so many wrongdoings going on. It's just so evil. It's just too much hatred out here. I just don't understand why we still have to continue to go through this vicious cycle of hatred. I don't understand it. I don't. And I tried to be real quiet and mindful of the whole situation because I was trying to see where it was going to play out into. But since they're taking so long with everything, with the investigation and the autopsy and all that stuff, I felt it was time to talk. Because now that I gathered more information, I felt like it was necessary to talk about it. Because when it first happened, I didn't want to speak on the situation yet because I didn't know all the facts involved. But now that more and more people in the media are bringing attention to this case, yeah, now we know more information. But I'm just so thankful that celebrities are also bringing attention to this. I've seen a lot of people post it on their stories, talk about it. D.L. Hughley, very big political advocate, he's talked about it on his radio show. Ricky Smiley's talked about it. Whole bunch of people talking about it. A lot of star power involved. I just hope and pray, like I said, the truth comes out because something got to be done. Something got to be done. They cannot let this fade away. They cannot brush this under the rug. You know, it's just so many incidents, so many years of chaos just unfolding every year. I swear, every time I look at the media, it's always something. And I try to drown out certain things because I try not to pay attention to too much. You know, normally, like I said, I share funny content on my channel. But when it's something that really bothers me and I really want to talk about it, well, I'm going to talk about it because I want other people to share their perspective on this case. And I also want people to be aware of what's happening in our very own backyard in America. Because if you haven't learned by now that when you are a minority, whether if you're black or brown, black or Hispanic, or even Asian, hell, you have to be very careful out here because you still have what's called the KKK out here. You still have the Klan territories, and people are literally getting lynched every single day. And it never gets talked about enough, and nobody ever sheds light on it, and it pisses me off. It really pisses me off because there is hardly any justice done. And I just felt like now we're at a time of, trying to find the truth, trying to get justice for the family. We're at a time where we're just fed up in general. I'll be honest, I'm personally fed up with it because every time I turn on YouTube or something else, that's the first thing I see. Everyone, when I say everybody is talking about this case, the whole world is talking about this case. Not just America. Oh no, there are people over in Africa talking about this case. There are people in Europe who are talking about this case. Like, everyone is literally talking about this case. That's how worldwide this case has gotten. But like I said, I just hope they don't let that family down. And I hope those crooked ass cops in that raggedy ass town gets some type of, trial started, because I have a fear they're going to try to rule this as a damn drowning, like they're trying to say right now, when we know damn well it wasn't no drowning. For 2 days, he went missing, by the way. They did not recover his body from the water until like July, I want to say around the 6th or the 7th. He was missing from the 4th to the 5th. So yeah, I believe they found him like on that Monday. It was either Monday or Tuesday morning. But yeah, it's too much. It's way too much happening. And this is why I try to tell people to be very mindful of their kids and watch who they hang around with and their activities. Because you don't know who some of these people are that they're hanging with. You don't know what kind of family background they come from. And I understand now why my parents were so damn protective of me, because they didn't trust none of those people in that town. I had a few white friends growing up, yes, but they were like high school. We were all practically grown, and we didn't really hang out at each other's houses either. We just hung out at school. Like when I say my parents didn't play that game, they didn't let nobody come to the house. They said I could go over to an event if they had like a party or something on public property, like school grounds or something. If it was a school event, yeah, they would let me go all day long. But if it was somebody else's house and they didn't know their parents, they would not let me go. Psh, they would not let me go nowhere. Like I was literally in jail at home. But yeah, I'm not saying you got to keep a tight leash on your children, but all I'm saying is that you definitely got to be mindful of the company that they keep, especially people who are not in the same minority bracket, because now I just feel like you got to keep your guard up. You got to keep your eyes open. You got to keep your ears open. You don't know who's watching half the time, who's jealous of you. And jealousy is such a ugly thing. It's very unfortunate how people can be so jealous and so hateful towards somebody that they would want to harm them. And I think that's what this is in this case, jealousy. Even though those white boys that he was hanging with, that he was so-called quote-unquote friends with, played on the football team with him, those weren't his real friends. And this case also reminds me of a similar case that got tossed out, by the way, and dismissed, of a black woman who was like in her 40s. She hung out with a whole bunch of white women at a slumber party somewhere in Georgia. This was like back in 2018. I don't know if y'all remember that case, but she mysteriously died in somebody's backyard the next morning when they found her. And the cops just ruled it as an overdose. Explain this. How does one die from an overdose and they try to say that she was smoking weed and had alcohol in her system? First of all, you cannot overdose on weed. Second of all, she never had anything in her system. So again, how was her death ruled as an overdose? Or natural causes per se. I'm not sure if they ruled it as an overdose, but I'm just saying what the narrative was posted in the media. And I was just like, see, that's that bullshit. This is why I have very slim to none trust with people now, especially people who are not black. I'm gonna be honest. I don't have a lot of friends for a very good reason. The only people I trust with my life are my childhood friend back home that I grew up with, that I've known for 30 plus years, who was black, and my friend that I work with at the VA, who was also black. I've known her for like damn near 20 years. And then my military buddies, who are all also black, that I've known for 10, 15 plus years, that I served with and deployed with. I trust them with my life because I know them very well. And we're in the same community. Now, I do have one white friend that I also trust with my life. Because remember, I don't discriminate. I have different colors of the rainbows in my circle. But the one white friend that's in my circle, she's special because her husband is black and her kids are mixed. So yeah, I trust her ass too. But I also served with her in the military. So yeah, I trust her with my life. I've known her for almost 20 years. Outside of my one white friend that I served with in the military, that's it. I don't have a whole bunch of white friends. I don't. And like I said, I don't have anything against anybody of any race. However, I use a lot of discernment when it comes to meeting different people from different backgrounds. That's all I'm saying. You got to be careful. You got to be real cautious of who you let inside your home, especially if you don't know if they own something, if you don't know if they're like a drug addict or something. You got to be real cautious of people. This is why I don't let anybody and everybody in my damn home. You know, I don't live in nothing really fancy. I just live in a 1-bedroom apartment. I don't have a mansion or nothing. But even in my 1 little bedroom apartment, I guard it with my whole entire life because I don't want nobody disturbing my peace at all. I do not. I don't. Because I am at peace, I am content, and I am satisfied. And the last thing I need is some jackass disturbing my peace because they see I live in a nice, clean apartment in a nice neighborhood and they think I have money. Then the next day I get robbed or even worse, end up hospitalized. But yeah, I'm very, very leery of strangers, especially people I really don't know. Yeah, in my 20s, it was a different story. You know, I was a little bit of a wild child in the military, not gonna lie. But now that I'm in my 30s, oh, I'm very wise. And I have my antennas up 24/7. Like I said, it's a brand new day. And you have to make sure you are aware of your surroundings and the company that you keep. That's all I got to say. But y'all let me know y'all's thoughts in the comments below. I just thought I'd make a nice evening special for you guys about this case. Because like I said, it took me a while to talk about it because I wanted to gather more facts. But I felt like now the time is right to discuss this case. But I'll holler at y'all. Y'all take care and be safe out there. And always, always phone a friend. If you happen to travel somewhere by yourself, make sure somebody else knows your location, okay? Bye-bye.